The human armada surrounded HFY. 700,000 warships filled the space around the HFY homeworld, blocking out the stars. On the planet below, 6 billion HFY looked up at the sky with terror in their compound eyes. Admiral Minho Kim stood on the bridge of the Eternal Defiance, his finger hovering over a button. The Hellfire Protocol. One press and the planet's atmosphere would ignite. Every living thing below would burn, just like New Busan had burned. "Sir, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the surface," the communications officer said. "Civilians begging for mercy. Families with children." "Children," Minho repeated quietly. He thought about his own grandchildren, 8 and 6 years old. They had died afraid and in pain. Now he had the power to do the same to millions of HFY children. "Admiral," Fleet Admiral Taejin Yoon said softly, "the decision is yours. President Han has given you full authority." Minho looked at the planet. It would be so easy. Justice for New Busan, an eye for an eye. 4 million human lives for 6 billion HFY lives. The math was brutal but simple. His hand moved toward the button. "Sir," the communications officer shouted. "New transmission from New Busan." "That's impossible," Minho said. "New Busan is dead." "Not entirely, sir. The automated beacon just picked up life signs. There are survivors." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at the communications officer. "How many?" Minho asked, his voice shaking. 127 people, sir. They were in deep underground shelters. Agricultural bunkers. Reinforced structures. They survived. Minho sat down heavily. Survivors. After all this time, there were survivors. "Get me the list of names." The list appeared on his screen. He scrolled through it with trembling hands. Most were colonists he didn't know. But then he saw a name that made his heart stop. Suman Park. Age 8. Status: alive Captain Heejin Park's daughter. His own granddaughter's friend. The little girl who wanted to be a pilot like her mother. She had survived. "There's a message attached, sir," the officer said. "It's from Captain Park, recorded before she died." The message played. Heejin Park's face appeared, tired and scared but still strong. "If you're hearing this, New Busan is gone. I'm probably dead. Don't let my death, don't let anyone's death here, turn you into what they are. Remember who we were. Remember why we built colonies in the first place. To be better than the history of blood behind us. Win the war. Make them pay. But don't become them." The message ended. The bridge was silent except for quiet crying from some crew members. Minho Kim looked at the planet below. At the 6 billion lives waiting for him to decide their fate. He thought about his daughter's message. About little Suman Park who had survived the impossible. About what kind of galaxy humanity wanted to live in. He moved his hand away from the button. "Open a channel to the HFY government," he ordered. "All frequencies." When the channel opened, Minho spoke clearly. "People of HFY, your military destroyed our colony of New Busan. 4 million people died. My family died. By every right of war, I could burn your world and leave nothing but ash. That's what you did to us." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we are not you. We are not monsters. Your military committed genocide. Your leaders started this war, but your children did not. Your families did not. So I'm making you an offer. Surrender completely. Disarm your entire fleet, except human occupation, and you will live. Refuse, and we will destroy everything." On HFY, the government council gathered in emergency session. Overlord Thexmar sat among them, defeated and broken. "We have no choice," one counselor said. "Accept their terms." "We'll be slaves," another protested. "We'll be alive," Thexmar said quietly. "I started this war. I destroyed New Busan. I thought humans were weak. I was wrong about everything. Now I must face the consequences." The HFY government transmitted their surrender, total and unconditional. The war was over. President Sora Han addressed the galaxy from Earth. Her speech was broadcast to every known species. The HFY Empire attacked humanity without provocation. They committed genocide. They believed we would not respond. They were wrong. We have defeated them utterly. Their fleet is destroyed. Their empire is broken. But we did not exterminate them. We are not conquerors. We are defenders. Let every species in this galaxy understand. Humanity wants peace. But if you threaten us, if you attack our people, you will face the same response the HFY faced. 700,000 warships, no mercy, no surrender. The galaxy listened, and the galaxy learned. Over the following months, human forces occupied Velkari space. All weapons were destroyed. Their military was disbanded. Their government was reformed under human supervision. Admiral Minho Kim retired. He returned to Earth and requested only one thing: to be present when the survivors of New Busan arrived home. The transport ship landed at the memorial site. 127 people emerged, confused and traumatized. They had been in underground shelters when the attack happened. They had survived on emergency rations and recycled air. They had waited in the dark, not knowing if rescue would ever come. Suman Park stepped off the ship, holding the hand of another survivor. She was thin and pale but alive. When she saw Admiral Kim waiting, she ran to him. "Admiral Kim," she cried. "My mother. Is she—" Minho knelt down and held the girl gently. "Your mother was a hero. She saved thousands of people by giving them time to reach the shelters. Without her, you wouldn't be here," Suman cried into his shoulder. "I want my mom." "I know," Minho whispered. "I want my daughter too. But they're gone. All we can do now is live in a way that honors them." A memorial was built on the restored New Busan. The planet was slowly being terraformed again, returning it to the green world it had once been. A massive wall listed all 4.2 million names of those who died. At the memorial's dedication ceremony, Suman Park, now older and studying to be a pilot like her mother, asked Admiral Kim a question. "Would you have done it? Would you have burned their planet?" Minho was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. Every day I'm grateful I didn't have to find out." 20 years passed. A new generation of Velkari grew up learning true history, their empire's crimes, humanity's response, and the mercy they had been shown. A young Velkari diplomat named Keksevin traveled to Earth to meet with the current president. "I need to understand," Keksevin said. "Why did you spare us? Your admiral had every right to destroy HFY. The president, who had once been a soldier in the war, considered the question carefully. "Because 4 million deaths were too many. We weren't going to add 6 billion more. Vengeance has to end somewhere, or it never ends at all." Keksevin bowed in the human fashion. "My people will never forget what yours did. Both the justice and the mercy." In Velkari schools, children learned about New Busan. They learned about the 700,000 human warships that came for vengeance. And they learned about the admiral who chose mercy over revenge. The story spread across the galaxy. Other species heard about humanity's response to the Velkari attack. Some feared humans. Some respected them. But all of them understood that humanity was not to be trifled with. On Earth, in the military academies, new officers studied the Battle of New Busan and its aftermath. They learned tactics and strategy, but they also learned the final lesson that Admiral Minho Kim taught. Power without restraint is tyranny. Strength without mercy is cruelty. Humanity would fight when threatened. They would fight with everything they had, but they would never lose sight of what made them human in the first place. The 700,000 warships remained ready, scattered again across human space, protecting the colonies. A silent promise to the galaxy: we want peace, but we're prepared for war. And on New Busan, where green fields once again grew under an alien sun, children played in the streets. Life had returned. The memorial stood as a reminder of what was lost, but also of what endured. Humanity's capacity for both vengeance and mercy. For both war and peace. For both justice and forgiveness. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity at New Busan. Instead, they learned what humans were truly capable of, and the lesson would not be forgotten. Admiral Minho Kim lived out his final years in a small house near the New Busan Memorial. He died peacefully at age 93, surrounded by friends and the children of survivors. At his funeral, Suman Park, now a starship captain herself, gave the eulogy. Admiral Kim lost everything at New Busan: his family, his peace, his faith in a peaceful galaxy, but he never lost his humanity. He showed us that being strong doesn't mean being cruel, that justice doesn't require genocide, that we can fight monsters without becoming monsters ourselves. She paused, looking at the stars above. The Velkari thought we were weak because we valued peace. They learned we're strongest when we have something to fight for, and what we fight for matters more than the fight itself. The memorial grew quiet as people paid their respects to the admiral who had saved 2 civilizations, the one he defended and the one he spared. In the end, that was his greatest victory. Not the battle won or the war ended, but the choice made in the moment when vengeance and mercy hung in the balance. He chose mercy. And in doing so, he proved what humanity had always believed. That being civilized doesn't mean being weak. That showing mercy takes more courage than showing cruelty. The coalition of 4 gathered at a place called the Nexus Point. It was a strategic location where multiple jump routes converged, making it the perfect defensive position. 300,000 ships filled the space around the ancient asteroid field. Velkari, Threxian, Mulvari, and Kashan vessels waited for the human fleet to arrive. Overlord Thexmar felt confident. His allies brought powerful weapons that humans had never encountered. The Threxians had biological agents that could infect ship systems. The Mulvari could manipulate gravity itself. The Kashan possessed cloaking technology that made their ships nearly invisible. When the humans arrive, they will find death waiting, Thexmar announced to the coalition commanders. But on Earth, in the strategic planning room, Fleet Admiral Tyajin Yoon was 3 steps ahead. They expect us to charge straight at them, Yoon said, moving pieces on the holographic display. So we won't. Admiral Kim will take 400,000 ships and engage them at the Nexus Point, but Captain Kang will take the remaining 300,000 ships on a different route. Admiral Minho Kim studied the plan. You want to split our forces? The Velkari committed genocide to test us, Yoon replied. Now we'll test them. We'll see if they're willing to sacrifice their own colonies to maintain their military position. Captain Haejin Kang commanded a stealth corvette called Silent Vengeance. She was selected to lead the Shadow Fleet on a dangerous mission. They would use uncharted jump routes, hidden pathways through space that most species didn't know existed. Your job, Yoon told her, is to bypass the enemy fleet entirely. Hit their colony worlds. Not to destroy them, but to threaten them. Make the Velkari choose between their military and their civilians. Haejin understood. And if they choose their military? If they abandon their people? Then we'll know what kind of species we're fighting, Yoon said grimly. The human fleet divided. Admiral Minho Kim led the main force toward the Nexus Point, while Captain Haejin Kang's shadow fleet disappeared into unknown space. When the human fleet arrived at the Nexus Point, the coalition was ready. Thexmar gave the order to attack. 300,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. The sky filled with plasma, missiles, and energy beams. The human fleet absorbed the first wave of fire. Ships exploded. Shields failed. Thousands died in the first minutes. But the human fleet didn't break. They didn't retreat. Instead, they adapted. The Threxians deployed their biological weapons, releasing microscopic organisms designed to infect human ship computers. But human AI systems detected the threat immediately and shut down all external ports. The biological agents found nothing to infect. The Mulvari activated their gravity weapons, creating intense gravitational fields that should have crushed human ships. But human engineers had studied gravitational physics for centuries. When the gravity fields appeared, human ships simply shut down their engines and drifted through the fields like debris. Once through, they reactivated and continued fighting. The Kashan cloaked their ships and tried to sneak behind human lines. But human sensor technology wasn't based on light or heat. It detected mass and gravitational distortions. The cloaked ships were as visible to human sensors as if they had spotlights attached. They're countering everything we do, a coalition commander shouted. Impossible, Thexmar replied. They've never fought these technologies before. But he was wrong. Humans had been preparing for this war since the first day they met hostile aliens. Every weapon humanity encountered was studied, analyzed, and countermeasures developed. Human adaptability was their greatest strength. Admiral Yuna Song coordinated the entire operation from her command ship. She was responsible for logistics, making sure ammunition, fuel, and spare parts reached the right ships at the right time. It was an impossible job managing 400,000 ships in active combat, but Yuna had prepared for years. The Eternal Defiance needs reactor cores, someone reported. Send supply ship Sigma 7, Yuna ordered. Route them through Sector 9 to avoid the fighting. The carrier group Delta needs fighter reinforcements. Deploy Reserve Squadron 12 from the support carrier. She worked without stopping, solving problems faster than they appeared. The coalition had more ships, but humanity had better organization. Captain Junho Nam's Reaper Squadron faced a group of Threxian fighters. The enemy pilots were good, using biological augmentation to enhance their reflexes. but they still fought as individuals. Reapers, Formation Omega, Junho ordered. His squadron shifted into a complex pattern, each fighter covering another's blind spots. The neural links between pilots meant they moved with perfect coordination. When Threxian fighters tried to target one human ship, they found themselves surrounded by others. "They're not human," one of Junho's wingmates said over the comm. "They're like a machine. A hive mind." "No," Junho replied, destroying another enemy fighter. "We're better than a hive mind. We choose to work together. That's what makes us strong." The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides died by the hundreds. Space was filled with debris and bodies. But slowly the human fleet gained the advantage. Their tactics were more flexible. Their coordination was superior. And they refused to give up. On a Kashan battleship, the captain watched his forces being decimated. "These humans fight like demons," he said to his crew. "Why are they so determined?" His tactical officer pulled up the data on New Busan. Images of the burned colony world. "They're fighting for revenge. For their dead." "We're just fighting for the Velkari's promises," the captain understood then. His people had joined this war for profit. The humans were fighting for survival. There was no comparison in motivation. Meanwhile, Captain Heijin Kang's shadow fleet emerged above 3 Velkari colony worlds. Her ships appeared without warning, having traveled through dangerous, uncharted space to get here. "Captain, we're in position," her tactical officer reported. "Weapons locked on all 3 planets." Heijin looked at the worlds below. Billions of Velkari civilians lived there. Families, children, innocent people who had nothing to do with the attack on New Busan. She opened a communication channel that broadcast to all 3 planets. "Velkari citizens, this is Captain Heijin Kang of the human fleet. Your military destroyed our colony of New Busan, killing 4 million people. We have the power to do the same to you. But we are not like your leaders. You have 6 hours to evacuate these worlds. After that, they become military targets." The Velkari civilians panicked. Evacuation ships launched by the thousands, fleeing their homeworlds. But there weren't enough ships. There wasn't enough time. At the nexus point, Overlord Thexmar received the report about the human fleet threatening his colonies. He faced an impossible choice: pull ships from the battle to defend the colonies or sacrifice the civilians to maintain military strength. "The colonies will have to fend for themselves," he decided. "We cannot divide our forces." His decision was broadcast across Velkari space. The civilians heard their military commander abandon them. The Velkari soldiers fighting at the nexus point heard it too. For the first time in their history, Velkari warriors questioned their leaders. They had been told humans were weak and cowardly. But humans had crossed the galaxy to avenge their dead. Meanwhile, their own overlord abandoned millions of his own people. Morale collapsed. Kashan ships began to withdraw, unwilling to die for Velkari interests. Mulvari commanders started negotiating private surrenders. The Threxian fleet simply jumped away, abandoning the coalition entirely. "We're losing," a Velkari commander shouted to Thexmar. "Our allies are deserting." "Then we fight alone," Thexmar roared. But even as he spoke, he knew the battle was lost. Sergeant Daehyun Park led human marines in an assault on a Velkari fortress station. The fighting was brutal. Velkari soldiers were strong and fought fiercely in close combat. But human marines had trained for every situation. "Use the terrain," Daehyun ordered. "They're built for high gravity. Use that against them." His marines moved through the station in zero gravity, something humans had practiced for generations. The Velkari soldiers, evolved on a heavy gravity world, were slow and clumsy in weightlessness. The battle lasted 11 days. Slowly, section by section, humans captured the fortress. On Earth, Dr. Yoonji Kwan made a breakthrough. She had been studying captured Velkari weapons and found a weakness. Their plasma weapons all operated on a specific frequency. She developed a field disruptor that neutralized that frequency. "Get this to the fleet immediately," she ordered. Within hours, the technology was being installed on human ships. Suddenly, the Velkari's primary weapons were useless. Admiral Minho Kim watched the coalition fleet break apart. Victory was certain now. But he felt no joy. He had killed hundreds of thousands of enemy soldiers. He had destroyed countless ships. Yet his daughter was still dead. His grandchildren were still dead. "Sir, the Velkari overlord is requesting negotiations," the communications officer said. Forward his request to Fleet Admiral Yoon, Minho replied. I'm not interested in what he has to say. At the nexus point, the coalition was finished. The Kashan, Mulvari, and Threxians had all withdrawn. Only the Velkari remained, and they were dying by the thousands. Overlord Thexmar sat alone in his command center, watching his empire crumble. He had started this war believing humans were weak. He had been catastrophically wrong. Overlord Thexmar stood in the command center of the Velkari home fleet. He was the supreme military commander of his species, a position he had earned through 300 years of conquest. His species measured age differently than humans, but in Earth years, he was ancient and experienced. Report, he clicked in his species language. The humans are coming, his tactical officer replied. Long-range sensors detect a massive fleet. They've entered our border systems. Thexmar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his kind. How many ships? Unclear. The sensors are overwhelmed by the number of contacts. Estimated 500,000 or more. For the first time in his long life, Thexmar felt something he didn't recognize immediately. Then he understood. It was fear. That's impossible. Human ships are scattered across 200 colonies. They can't possibly. They abandoned their colonies, the tactical officer interrupted. They've brought everything to our space. Every ship they have, Thexmar processed this information. The humans had done something unthinkable. They had left their worlds defenseless to mount a full offensive. It was either brilliant strategy or complete madness. Mobilize the fleet, he ordered. All 150,000 ships. We'll meet them at Krivos Station. Our technology is superior. Quality will defeat quantity. But deep in his ancient mind, doubt had taken root. The human armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Velkari space. Admiral Minho Kim stood on the bridge of the Eternal Defiance, watching the tactical displays. Ahead of them, Krivos Station orbited a dead moon. It was a military outpost, heavily armed and defended by 50,000 Velkari warships. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Velkari commander, the communications officer said. He's asking to negotiate. Ignore it, Minho said coldly. All ships' weapons range in 30 seconds. Prepare to fire on my command. Fleet Admiral Taejin Yoon stood beside him. Remember the battle plan. First wave hits their defensive platforms. Second wave engages their fleet. Third wave secures the station. Minho nodded. He had studied the Velkari tactics. They relied on plasma weapons and energy shields. Their ships were designed for close-range combat where their superior firepower could overwhelm enemies. Humans fought differently. 20 seconds. The tactical officer counted down. 15, 10. All ships, Minho said calmly. Fire. 100,000 human ships opened fire simultaneously. But they didn't fire lasers or plasma. They fired kinetic weapons. Solid tungsten rods accelerated to 70% of light speed. Simple ancient technology taken to its ultimate extreme. The Velkari shields were designed to deflect energy weapons. They were useless against physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The defensive platforms around Krivos Station exploded. Then the Velkari ships started dying. The tungsten rods punched through their shields and hulls like paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, someone shouted. The Velkari commander tried to regroup his ships, but the human fleet gave him no time. The second wave of 200,000 ships moved forward, maintaining maximum range. They fired missiles and railguns, never letting the Velkari close enough to use their plasma weapons effectively. Captain Bora Shin commanded the assault carrier Unbroken Will. Her ship held 200 fighter craft, and now she released them all. All wings launch, she ordered. Captain Junho Nam led the Reaper squadron out of the carrier bay. His new fighter responded perfectly to his commands. Behind him, thousands of other fighters deployed from hundreds of carriers. Reaper lead to all fighters, Junho said over the communication channel. Remember your training. Stay linked. Fight as one. The human fighters were different from Velkari craft. Each pilot's neural interface connected them to their wingmates. They didn't fight as individuals. They fought as a single organism with thousands of parts. When one pilot saw a target, all nearby pilots knew instantly. When one made a maneuver, the others compensated automatically. The Velkari fighter pilots were skilled warriors, but they fought alone, each seeking individual glory. Against the human swarm, they didn't stand a chance. Junho's targeting computer locked onto a Valkyrie fighter. He fired, and the enemy exploded. His wingmates had already targeted the next threats. The battle became a deadly dance where humans moved in perfect synchronization. Target the carriers, Junho ordered. If we take out their support ships, their fighters have nowhere to return. The Reaper squadron dove toward a Valkyrie carrier, dodging defensive fire. Their missiles struck the carrier's hangar bay, and secondary explosions tore through the ship. On the Eternal Defiance, Admiral Minho Kim watched the battle unfold. It was going better than expected. The Valkyrie were confused by human tactics. They tried to close range, but human ships simply maintained distance and kept firing. "Sir, the station is requesting permission to surrender," the communications officer said. "Denied," Minho replied. "Continue firing." "But sir, they're offering to surrender." "I said denied." Minho's voice was harsh. They gave New Busan no chance to surrender. "We give them nothing." Fleet Admiral Yoon placed a hand on Minho's shoulder. "Admiral, we need that station intact for intelligence purposes." "Let them surrender." Minho's jaw clenched. Every fiber of his being wanted to destroy everything Valkyrie. But he knew Yoon was right. They needed information about the Valkyrie Empire. About their allies. About their plans. "Fine," he said finally. "Order them to evacuate the station and prepare for boarding. Any trick and we destroy everything." Lieutenant Seo Jin-ho led the first Marine boarding party. His team wore powered armor that made them faster and stronger. They moved through the abandoned station corridors, securing each section. "This is too easy," one of his Marines said. "Where are the defenders?" "They're scared," Seojin replied. "They've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of." They reached the station's command center. Inside, they found the Valkyrie tactical data, ship positions, supply routes, communication codes, everything humanity needed to continue the war. The Battle of Krivo Station lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 40,000 Valkyrie ships were destroyed or crippled. The humans lost 300 ships. It wasn't even close, but Admiral Minho Kim found no satisfaction in the victory. He stared at the images of dead Valkyrie floating in space and felt nothing. No joy, no triumph, just emptiness. "Sir, we're receiving long-range data," the sensor officer said. "There's a large fleet heading our way. Not just Valkyrie, 3 other species, a coalition." Minho studied the data. 300,000 ships. The Valkyrie had called for help from their allies, species that humanity had never met, species that smelled opportunity in the destruction of human colonies. "How long until they arrive?" Minho asked. 72 hours. Fleet Admiral Yoon joined him at the tactical display. "They think their numbers will save them. They don't understand humans at all." "No," Minho agreed. "They don't. They think this is about territory or resources. They don't understand this is about survival, about making sure New Busan never happens again." He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships prepare for the next battle. Rest, repair, rearm. In 3 days, we face 300,000 enemy ships. I know some of you are tired. I know some of you are scared. But remember why we're here. Remember New Busan. Remember that 4 million people are counting on us to finish this." Across the fleet, crews worked through the night. Engineers repaired damaged ships. Munitions crews reloaded weapons. Medical teams treated the wounded. Everyone knew what was coming. On Earth, President Sorahan received reports of the victory at Krivo Station. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt dread. This war was just beginning. Dr. Yoonji Kwan stood in her laboratory looking at the experimental weapons. The mass accelerators that could crack planets. The antimatter torpedoes, the quantum disruption bombs, and the most terrible weapon of all, the one they called Hellfire Protocol. She wondered if they would need to use it. She wondered if they should. Her assistant interrupted her thoughts. "Ma'am, the Admiral is requesting all experimental weapons be moved to the front lines." "Do it," Yoonji said. "If we're going to fight the entire galaxy, we'll need every advantage we have." In Valkyrie space, Overlord Thexmar gathered his coalition fleet. Ships from 4 different species, each seeking to profit from humanity's destruction. The Threxians with their biological weapons, the Movari with their gravitational technology, the Kashan with their stealth capabilities. "The humans are dangerous," Thexmar told the coalition commanders. "But they are still young, still inexperienced. Together we outnumber them 2 to 1. We will crush them," the other commanders agreed. They had all conquered younger species before. Humans would be no different. But none of them had seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge. None of them understood the simple truth that Admiral Minho Kim had learned long ago. Humanity didn't fight wars to win territory. They fought wars to survive. And nothing was more dangerous than a species fighting for its very existence. The scout ship arrived at New Busan 3 days after the distress signal was sent. Commander Ji-won Lee stood on the bridge, watching the planet grow larger on the screens. She expected to see some damage. Maybe a few destroyed buildings, perhaps a Velkari occupation force. What she saw instead made her blood run cold. The entire planet was black, not the green and blue world that should have been there. Just black and gray ash covering everything. "Get me surface readings," Ji-won said, her voice tight. The sensor officer worked silently for a moment. When he looked up, tears ran down his face. "No life signs, Commander. Nothing. The entire atmosphere was superheated. Everything organic was incinerated." Ji-won closed her eyes. "How many people lived here?" 4,200,000. The bridge was silent except for the quiet crying of the crew. Some of them had friends on New Busan. Some had family. "Collect all data," Ji-won ordered. "Record everything. Then we're going back to Earth. The government needs to see this." The scout ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward humanity's home system. Behind them, the distress beacon continued broadcasting Captain Heejin Park's final message into the void. On Earth, in the Geneva Arcology that housed the planetary government, President Sora Han sat in an emergency meeting. Around the table were military commanders, intelligence officers, and colony representatives. All of them had seen the recordings from New Busan, where Admiral Minho Kim sat with his hands folded on the table. He was 58 years old and had served humanity for 40 years. He had fought in the First Contact Wars when humans first met hostile aliens. He had seen battle and death, but nothing had prepared him for this. His daughter had lived on New Busan, his 2 grandchildren, his son-in-law all gone, burned to ash. "Admiral Kim," President Han said gently, "perhaps you should recuse yourself from this discussion. No one would think less of you." "No, Madam President," Minho said, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. "I need to be here." President Han nodded. She understood. Sometimes duty was all that kept a person going. "Commander Lee," the president said, turning to Ji-won, "what do we know about the Velkari military?" Ji-won stood and activated the holographic display. Images of alien ships appeared in the air above the table. "The Velkari Empire controls 40 star systems," she began. "Their military consists of approximately 150,000 warships. They are a hierarchical species with a strong warrior culture. They've conquered 12 other civilizations over the past 3,000 years. So they're experienced at war," someone said. "Yes, but they've never fought humans before." Ji-won changed the display to show tactical data. "According to our intelligence, they attacked New Busan as a test. They wanted to see how long it would take us to respond. They're planning a full invasion of human space." Angry voices filled the room. Representatives demanded immediate retaliation. Military officers argued about strategy. Everyone spoke at once until President Han raised her hand for silence. "Fleet Admiral Yoon," she said, addressing the Supreme Military Commander, "what are our capabilities?" Fleet Admiral Taejin Yoon was a thin man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had spent his entire life studying warfare. Now he would put that knowledge to use. "We have 700,000 registered warships spread across 200 colony systems," he said. "Individually, our technology is roughly equal to the Velkari. We have some advantages in certain areas, some disadvantages in others. But our main problem is distance. Our fleet is scattered. Theirs is concentrated. Then we concentrate ours," Admiral Minho Kim said. Everyone turned to look at him. "We bring every ship to Earth, all of them." "That would leave the colonies defenseless," someone protested. "The colonies are already defenseless," Minho replied coldly. New Busan had defense ships. They lasted 10 minutes. If the Velkari attack another colony, a few frigates won't stop them, but 700,000 warships hitting their home systems might. Silence fell over the room as everyone considered this. "You're talking about abandoning our colonies to mount a full offensive," a colony representative said. "That's insane." "No," Fleet Admiral Yoon said slowly. "It's brilliant. The Velkari think we're weak because we're spread thin. They think we'll try to defend everything and end up defending nothing. Admiral Kim is right. We need to hit them with everything we have before they can organize their invasion." President Han looked around the table. How long would it take to gather the fleet? 30 days, Yoon replied. Some ships are far away, but we can do it in 30 days. Then make it happen, President Han ordered. Operation Avalanche is approved. Bring our ships home. All of them. The meeting ended and military officers rushed to implement the orders. But President Han asked Admiral Minho Kim to remain. Minho, she said when they were alone, I need to know you can do this. I need to know you won't let your grief cloud your judgment. My grief is what makes my judgment clear, Minho replied. The Valkyrie murdered 4 million people. My family, your citizens. They did it as a test, as a warning. They need to learn that you don't warn humanity. You don't test us. And you certainly don't murder us. And if we win, when we win, what then? Minho met her eyes. Then we make sure they can never threaten anyone again. Across human space, the orders went out. Every warship, from the smallest patrol boat to the largest battleship, turned toward Earth. Colony defense fleets abandoned their posts. Trade escorts left their routes. Even the ships guarding the frontier turned around and began the long journey home. In secret orbital shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, Dr. Yoonji Kwon activated the emergency protocols. She was the head of military research and development. For years she had worked on weapons that were too powerful, too dangerous to use. Weapons kept in reserve for the worst possible scenario. That scenario had arrived. Initialize Project Fury, she told her staff. I want every experimental weapon ready for deployment in 25 days. Her assistant looked nervous. Ma'am, some of these weapons have never been tested in actual combat. Then our enemies will be the test subjects, Yoonji replied without emotion. At a military base on Mars, Captain Junho Nam received his new orders. His fighter squadron had been grounded for 3 years, their ships outdated and obsolete. Now they were being assigned new craft. The latest generation, faster, deadlier, more advanced than anything humans had built before. Junho ran his hand along the smooth hull of his new fighter. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Sir, what do we call these? His wingman asked. Junho thought for a moment. Reapers, he said. We call them Reapers. 28 days later, Earth's orbit was filled with warships. They came from every direction, every system, every corner of human space. Battleships the size of cities, carriers holding thousands of fighters, destroyers bristling with weapons, cruisers and frigates and support vessels. 100,000 ships filled the sky above humanity's homeworld. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. President Sorahan broadcast her message to every human across space. Her face appeared on screens in homes, ships, and stations. People of Earth and her colonies, she began. 3 weeks ago, the Valkyrie Empire murdered every person on New Busan. 4 million souls. Men, women, and children. They did this to test us, to frighten us, to make us surrender before their invasion even began. She paused, letting her words sink in. They made a mistake. They believed we were soft. They believed our peace made us weak. They believed killing our brothers and sisters would break our spirit. They were wrong. We are coming. We are bringing 700,000 warships, and we are bringing hell itself. The broadcast ended. Admiral Minho Kim stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Defiance. Around him floated an armada that blocked out the stars. He opened a communication channel that broadcast to every ship in the fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Kim. Set course for Valkyrie space. Maximum speed, no mercy. As one, the 700,000 ships turned. Their engines ignited and they jumped into faster-than-light travel. The vengeance of humanity had been unleashed. The morning sun rose over New Busan like it had done for the past 30 years. The colony planet Hanbit 5 was beautiful. Green fields stretched as far as the eye could see. Children played in the streets while their parents worked in the farms and factories. 4 million people called this place home. Governor Doyun Choi stood on his balcony drinking his morning tea. He was a simple man who had once been a farmer. Now he led the colony, and he was proud of what they had built together. New Busan was proof that humans could thrive anywhere in the galaxy. Governor, we have visitors, his assistant said, interrupting his peaceful moment. Doyun turned. Who? The Valkyrie. 3 of their trade ships just entered orbit. Doyun nodded slowly. The Valkyrie were an alien race that humans had met 20 years ago. They looked like giant insects with hard shells and multiple eyes. The 2 species had traded goods but never became close friends. Still, there had been no problems, no wars. No conflicts. Send the usual welcome message, Doyen said, and notify Captain Park. Captain Hyejin Park commanded the only military ship protecting New Busan. The Dawn's Promise was a small frigate, nothing special. Most colonies had 1 or 2 ships for defense. Real protection came from Earth's massive fleet. But Earth was far away. Hyejin sat in her captain's chair, watching the Velkari ships on her screens. Something felt wrong. She had been a soldier for 15 years, and her instincts were rarely mistaken. Run a deep scan on those vessels, she ordered. Her crew worked quickly. The screens showed normal trade ships. Normal cargo. Normal everything, but Hyejin's stomach twisted with worry. Captain, should we raise shields? Her first officer asked. Hyejin hesitated. If she raised shields, it would insult their visitors. It might cause a diplomatic incident. But if she didn't... Not yet, she finally said. But keep scanning. Something doesn't feel right. Down on the planet, Doyen prepared to meet with the Velkari delegation. They wanted to discuss mining rights, they said. New Busan had rich mineral deposits that the Velkari needed. In exchange, they offered advanced technology. It seemed like a fair trade. The Velkari ambassador arrived at the governor's office. Its name was impossible for humans to pronounce, so they called it Ambassador Vex. The creature stood on 6 legs, its compound eyes reflecting the office lights. Governor Choi, Vex said through its translator device. We appreciate your hospitality. Of course, Doyen replied, smiling. Shall we discuss the mining contract? Actually, Vex said, there has been a change of plans. Before Doyen could ask what that meant, alarms started blaring throughout the colony. In orbit, Hyejin watched in horror as the Velkari trade ships opened like flowers. Hidden inside were weapons. Massive weapons. The kind that could destroy a city with one shot. All hands to battle stations. Hyejin shouted, raise shields. Charge weapons. But it was too late. The Velkari ships fired. Blue plasma bolts tore through space. The orbital defense platforms exploded instantly. They had been built to stop pirates, not military warships. They were useless against this attack. The Dawn's Promise shook as enemy fire hammered against its shields. Return fire, Hyejin ordered, and send a distress signal to Earth. Tell them we're under attack. Her ship fired its missiles and railguns, but the Velkari ships barely noticed. Their shields absorbed everything. The Dawn's Promise was built for patrol duty, not war. Shields at 40%. Someone shouted, 30%. Captain, we can't win this fight, her first officer said quietly. Hyejin knew he was right. But she had a duty. 4 million people lived on the planet below. Her own daughter lived down there. Little Suman, only 8 years old, who wanted to be a pilot like her mother. Keep firing, Hyejin said. We need to buy time for the evacuation. On the planet's surface, chaos erupted. Sirens wailed. People ran through the streets not knowing where to go. The colony had emergency shelters, but not enough for everyone. They were built for storms and accidents, not war. Doyen grabbed his communicator. All citizens proceed to the nearest shelter immediately. This is not a drill. Ambassador Vex watched the governor with its unreadable alien eyes. Your people cannot hide, it said. We have been planning this for months. Your colony will be the first, but not the last. Why? Doyen asked, his voice shaking. We've done nothing to you. Humans spread too fast, Vex replied. You claim too many worlds. You grow too strong. Better to strike now while you are still weak and scattered. Doyen realized the terrible truth. This wasn't about mining rights. This was extermination. In orbit, the Dawn's Promise was dying. Fires burned throughout the ship. Half the crew was dead. The shields were gone. Hyejin looked at the planet below. She could see the plasma strikes hitting the surface. Cities burning. Her home burning. Her daughter was down there. Captain, we need to abandon ship. Her first officer yelled over the noise. No, Hyejin said calmly. I need you to do something for me. Record a message and attach it to the distress beacon. Make sure it survives. Captain, that's an order. She recorded quickly. Knowing these would be her last words, she thought about her daughter. About her husband who had died 5 years ago. About the peaceful life they had tried to build. When she finished, she looked at her remaining crew. You've all served honorably. It's been my privilege to command you. Now get to the escape pods. We're not leaving you, someone protested. Yes, you are. I need to keep this ship fighting for as long as possible. Every second counts. Now go. Reluctantly, her crew obeyed. They knew their captain was right. They knew she was staying to die. When they were gone, Hyejin aimed her crippled ship at the nearest Velkari vessel. She pushed the engines to maximum, ignoring the alarms and warnings. The Dawn's promise accelerated like a missile. The Velkari ship noticed too late. The frigate crashed into it at tremendous speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the sky. On the planet below, people looked up and saw the explosion. Some hoped it meant they were saved. But they were wrong. The Velkari deployed their final weapons. Atmospheric incinerators, devices designed to turn a planet's air into fire. The bombs fell from orbit, and when they detonated, the entire sky began to burn. In his office, Governor Doyen Choi held a picture of his family. He closed his eyes. In the underground shelters, people screamed as the heat penetrated through meters of rock and steel. In a small agricultural bunker on the colony's edge, 8-year-old Suman Park held her friend's hand as the lights went out. The fire lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, New Busan was silent. The fields were ash. The cities were ruins. 4,200,000 people were dead. Only the automated distress beacon continued broadcasting, sending its message into the endless dark of space. A message that would take 3 days to reach the nearest human ship, 3 days for the Velkari to run. But there was nowhere far enough to hide from what was coming. Earth had 700,000 warships, and every single one of them was about to learn what had happened to New Busan.